I'm Sensei Allison from Code Ninjas Wellesley, back with another video on loops. In this video, we're going to go over another form that loops can take. A for loop operates similarly to a while loop, but there's an explicit requirement for a variable that controls the number of iterations. Let's go over the flow of a for loop together. First, the computer sees the for keyword. This signals to the computer that it's about to see four components: the initializing statement, the conditional statement, the ending statement, and the code block. The computer first executes the initializing statement. Often, this statement involves the creation of a variable that will track the number of loop iterations and sets that variable to the value it will begin at, often 0 or 1. Next, the computer evaluates the conditional statement. You could write a for loop that initializes the loop tracker variable to a value that never passes through the conditional check, but that loop's code block would never get executed and it would be kind of a waste of code. Next, if the conditional statement holds true, the computer executes the statements in the code block. You can use the loop counter variable in your code block if you want. For example, let's say you're using a loop to look at all the elements of a list. The loop counter would help you keep track of which member of the list you want to look at next. At the end of the code block, the computer encounters a closing curly bracket. Here, the computer returns to the ending statement. Often, the ending statement changes the value of the loop counter in some way, by, for example, adding 1 to the number held by the loop counter. After executing the ending statement, we return to the conditional statement. Notice that we don't execute the initializing statement again. If the conditional is true, we go through the process of executing the code block and the ending statement again. If not, we skip to the closing curly bracket and start executing again from there. Notice that if we skip to the closing curly bracket from the conditional, we don't execute the ending statement again. Let's look at an example. This code adds the phrase, "the number is," and the value held by the loop counter to a text variable each time the code block executes. We'll consider 3 questions. How many times would this loop execute? What would the text variable hold after each loop iteration? What would the variable I hold after each loop iteration? Remember that when we use the plus sign with text, that means mash 2 words together, or concatenation if you want to use the fancy word. So, this means add the phrase "the number is" and the number that I is to any text that was previously put into the text variable. Notice it starts blank, or with starting double quotes, nothing, then ending double quotes. Remember to really get into the computer's shoes and only record your answers for each iteration at only one point in the loop. Again, I'll suggest that you record your values every time you pass over the line with the conditional statement in it. Here's what I got. Let's walk through the loop together so you can understand what happened. So, first, I see that we're making an empty text variable. Then, I see that we're starting a for loop. We make a loop counter variable I that starts with the value 1. We check that I is indeed less than or equal to 4, which 1 is less than 4, and so since that's true, we record that before any iterations have occurred, I holds the value 1, text holds nothing, and the conditional statement is true. So now we execute the code block, which is just turning text from an empty text variable into a text variable that holds the phrase "the number is 1. Then we execute our ending statement, which is I++, which means reassign I to 1 more than it used to be, and then we evaluate our conditional. So we've executed the loop block once. I now holds 2, the text variable holds 1, and 2 is still less than or equal to 4, so the conditional is true. So we execute again. So this process continues until we add the phrase "the number is 4" to our text variable, and add 1 to our I, which is 4, now becoming 5, reevaluate the conditional, 5 is not less than or equal to 4, and so the conditional is false. One important thing to note is that you can only use the loop counter variable outside of the for loop if your variable declaration, you know, the one that looks like var text equals blank or var I equals 1, also happens outside of the for loop. If you use the var keyword in your initializing statement, the loop counter disappears after the closing curly bracket. Thanks for watching, and be sure to come back for more videos on loops.